Thank you, David. Indeed, we're live again at the Cape Town International Conference Center, and I just wanted to give you some factoids around WEF. You know, it is, of course, a forum that is now this year particularly focusing. What they are saying is delivering on Africa's promise. Now, how do you achieve that promise? Well, they've got a number of people here, 850 participants from around the world, in fact, 70 countries to be exact. We're talking about 600 business leaders. We're talking about 65 public figures, including perhaps 8 heads of state. Then we have media leaders. We also have young leaders. And, of course, we've got more than 180 women. Now, amongst the men that are attending is Leslie Marsdorp, is president of Merrill Lynch, the Southern African division. And I just wanted to have a chat with him because he's one of the moderators of the sessions around here. Leslie, thanks for your time. Let's begin by taking a look at what you were doing yesterday and what you're doing today. And if you can, in a summary, if you like, tell us some of the key things that you have picked up, the mood around the conference. I mean, we always in the media try and hype it up and say this is what's going on, but you are a participant and you are actually making it happen. What are you seeing?
Thank you very much for having me firstly. I think that I sense this year, and I've attended many of the Africa World Economic Forums, a much more positive sentiment about the continent and the prospects for the continent going forward.
Yeah.
In the past, if you look at the themes of the conference, there was always a focus on governance, on issues of political risk, on instability and so on. I think there's now a recognition that Africa has moved considerably away from that paradigm. The narrative has changed now. It's all about how do we sustain the growth that we've achieved over the last 10 years. Since 2000, as you know, coinciding with the rise in commodity prices,
yeah,
Africa has grown on average about 5%. That is completely unprecedented in recent economic history.
Yeah.
We had reasonable growth in the early parts of the 70s, but as soon as oil prices dropped, Africa stagnated again. So the conversation this year is very much about how do we ensure that this growth is embedded, that we are able to have long-term sustainable growth that is not dependent on just the movement in commodities. So I sense a much greater focus on what are the hard challenges that Africa still face in order to embed that growth.
That's an important point because some people are suggesting that Africa is growing despite its government, suggesting that there's very little that the governments themselves are doing. Let's talk about one of the sessions that you moderated on governance, as well as these perceptions about Africa being a risky place to do business. What came out of it?
I think firstly we identified that governance and good governance is a critical ingredient of attracting investment. And as you know, investment, private, whether it's foreign direct investment or domestic investment within a country, is a critical ingredient of growth. So we've got to focus on governance. Yesterday there was very much a focus on what are the things that business can do, because the majority of participants here are actually from a business.
From business, yeah.
So we discussed what are the messages that we want to ventilate across to government to ensure that the operating environment is improved. And here I'm talking about how do we ensure that whether it's the granting of licenses, permits, mining rights, that those processes are much more transparent, that governments can be held accountable, because in many countries you still have incidences where the incidents of corruption, for example.
It's who you know.
And we've got to be able to talk openly about these. And I sense a much more bold sentiment amongst business to engage in these kind of more difficult conversations, if you like.
Yeah, but now how do you build those institutions? Of course, beyond the talk, we, as I say in the media, we like to characterize these things as talk shops, and we want to try and see if there are actually concrete things that are taking place. Now, beyond the talk, how do we ensure that the governments, who are in part responsible in the main for building these things, actually do the work, like institutions? You speak about the fact that, you know, the granting of mining licensing, be it maybe the banking license, etc., all those things are done transparently. But how do we make the politicians actually do those things and get on with it?
Look, I mean, ultimately, Africa, as you know, is a continent comprising of 53 countries. So I'd say ultimately we need to ensure that leaders are held accountable in their own jurisdictions. And I think increasingly now you find more NGOs, civil society bodies participating here in the World Economic Forum. And some of the difficult questions are asked in the plenary. So it'll be interesting to see later in the opening plenary at 11 o'clock what questions will be posed to President Zuma and some of the other presidents who are here. But the only way to build these institutions in a lasting and sustainable way, in my view, is to invest heavily in education and skills development. There's a session tomorrow that will indeed focus on that, because Africa's population, the demographics suggest that Africa will in fact be have the largest proportion of workers in the labor force in the next 20 to 30 years,
Right.
because we have a young population now.
Yeah.
So it's important to invest heavily in education and skills development.
That was going to be my next question, because how do we, yes, we've got it growth faster, you've got the economy is growing faster now because of China, some people say because of India, because of the commodity price, and as I said earlier, perhaps despite what the governments are doing, some governments are doing fantastic. But how do we embed and make sure that this growth actually quickens better than we are doing, so that it's not a flash in the pan, but it's something that lasts for years and years. Even after this growth spurt is gone, we have something that sustains that growth going forward.
Yeah. Look, I think firstly, the interesting observation now, based on a number of analysis, is that over the last 10 years, commodities and resources only accounted for about a quarter of the GDP growth. There's this assumption that over the last 10 years, it was mainly a rapid increase in the price of oil and commodities up until 2008. As you know, after the crisis, commodity prices came tumbling down. But only a quarter of the growth can be attributed to resources. So we're already seeing now a broadening and deepening of the economic growth. There's been a massive growth in the consumer-facing sectors, so retail, telecoms, transportation, construction, property, and so on. So the growth has been a lot more broad-based. But the only way to embed it, as I said early on, is to invest heavily in upskilling our workforce. So if there's one lever, if you ask me, what is the one thing that governments and business can do to make a significant impact on the future, I would say it's significant new investment in education and skills. And here in particular, tomorrow we're going to explore what are the innovative new ways, new models that we can scale up. Because there's been significant examples, for example, in mobile banking in Kenya, where there are more people using mobile banking in that country than any other part of the world. So in Africa, they've pioneered an innovation. We want to look at how we can do that in other sectors of the economy.